Good afternoon and welcome to our All About E-Bikes class. My name is Melina Lastly and I'm a consultant to SANDAG Sustainable Transportation Services. For those of you who are not familiar with our services, SANDAG offers free bike education classes like this one and group bike rides, as well as free classes and bike rodeos for schools and youth organizations. If you're interested in having a class offered at your place of employment or at a youth organization or school, you can sign up at sandag.org. Many of your employers may already be part of our employer commuter program, but if not, I encourage you to reach out to us so you can take advantage of the great free services SANDAG offers to help support sustainable commuting by emailing us at sustainabletransportation@sandag.org. I'll also put that in the chat box. I also want to mention we have a special guest today, Thomas from Rad Power Bikes. He'll be talking at the end of our presentation after Mr. Kevin to answer your burning questions about e-bikes and Rad Power Bikes. So without further ado, I would love to introduce our instructor for today's course, Kevin Barras from the San Diego County Bicycle Coalition. Take it away, Kevin.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for being here. We get a good sized class. We are going to be recording this, and I'll make sure it's available to all of you and frankly available to everybody who registered. And that'll be up on YouTube, and you can send it to your friends who told you they were coming and you don't see them here, and you can guilt them into watching it later on. I'm gonna do my best to stop talking in about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. I usually don't quite hit that and go over by a few minutes. Today, it's especially important because we do want to leave time for Q&A at the end. I'm honored to have Thomas Bosch with us, and he's going to answer sort of. I was looking at my instruction was like, what are the questions you get the most as the owner operator of a e-bike shop? And so we'll get those answered. And my goal is to get through these slides. So I mean, I've got about 4 hours worth of information that I'm going to do in about 40 minutes. These are the most basic topics that we're going to start with. These are the things that I get questions about the most. And while you're reading over those, allow me to give just a little bit more of an introduction to myself. I do see some familiar names in the participant window, so thank you to those of you that I've met with before that are here. Those of you that haven't, I go by Mr. Kevin when I'm teaching because this is very professional. I've worked for the San Diego County Bicycle Coalition for just about 10 years. My 10-year anniversary is in a month or two, I think. I rode my bike across the United States, Seattle, Washington to New York City, pre-e-bike days. What else is cool about me? I teach a lot of these classes. So I go all across San Diego County, San Ysidro to Oceanside, tech companies, pharmaceutical companies, name a big company in San Diego, and I've probably been there. I do go to a lot of kids' schools, elementary, middle, high school, colleges as well. I had a kid trick or treat at the door, and I answered it, and he said, oh, Mr. Kevin. And I said, hello, young one. So I'm a local celebrity when it comes to bike education in San Diego. Because I do a lot of classes, I get a lot of information from people. And like I said, when it comes to e-bikes, these are the things that I get questions about the most. So frankly, what is the definition of an e-bike? And it's not as simple as you may think. What are the different classifications? What are the differences between those classifications? Where does the power come from? How is the power accessed? Is that a throttle? Is that some other way to do it? Is the bike going to get stolen? How do I prevent that from happening? How do I make it less likely for that to happen? Where am I allowed to ride these things? And frankly, that's a different question than where should I ride these things? And that's maybe even a different question than where is it recommended that I ride these things? Signs and signals. What are specific signs and signals related to bikes that you may see out on the road? I can explain some of those. Carrying two people on a bike is something I get questions about a lot. And again, the answer to that is not as cut and dry as you may think. Remaining visible, and then obviously I can't get through a presentation without talking about helmets. Throughout this presentation, I'll allow unmuting sort of at the end, but for now, if you had a question, if you had a concern, if you had a funny story, if you had a recipe for energy bars, whatever, put it in the chat. Throughout the presentation, I'll be asking questions and soliciting feedback in the chat window as well. And in fact, just for fun, go ahead and say hello in the chat window now, just so I know you're out there. Because right now it's just a bunch of names on the screen, and it makes me feel a little bit more connected if I could get one little hello or hi or something. Hi, Hansel. Hi, Ada. Hi, Tyler. Hi, Pon. Hi, Jasmine. Hi, Tim. Hi, Zishan. Hi, Dakota. And hi, Michael and Hare. Hi, Jeremiah and Gerald. Thank you all for being here. Okay, so with that, we're already behind schedule. Let's jump right into it. There are essentially 3 classifications of e-bikes that exist. In California, we're focused on MPH. In other places, they're focused on the specific power output of that motor, so watts, and there's different ways to sort of classify in different states. We're in California, we're going to talk about California. In California, we're classifying 3 different types of e-bikes that exist. If it's a device and it doesn't fit into one of these 3 classifications, it is not an e-bike. It's something else. And the something else can get pretty confusing because, like, for example, I know what a scooter is. It's a thing that you stand on a little platform and it's got little wheels, right? But if I put a seat on that scooter, is that now a motorcycle? Is it a moped? Is it a sit-down scooter? It can get confusing. For our purposes today, we're talking about e-bicycles, which is a bicycle with a little bit more and not a motorcycle with a little bit less. So the first thing to look for, frankly, is, does it have pedals? If it doesn't have pedals, it's not a bicycle. If it doesn't have pedals, it's something else. Maybe it's a sit-down scooter, maybe it's a moped, maybe it's a motorcycle, maybe it's, I don't even know what. But for today, we're talking about e-bikes, and e-bikes have pedals. Now that we know that it's a e-bike of some kind, it then has to fit within one of these 3 classifications. Class 1 has power which comes from the pedals alone, which means no throttle. And the power maxes out at 20 miles per hour. Now, the wording of that is important. The way I've sometimes driven this home, especially for teenagers, is I say, and they get the question right every time, so the power maxes out at 20 miles per hour. Can you go faster than 20 miles per hour on a Class 1 e-bike? Absolutely you can. I can go faster than 20 miles per hour on a bike that doesn't have a motor on it. If I'm going downhill, if I'm pedaling fast, whatever. The motor stops pushing at 20. After that, it's up to me to continue on at the speed that I desire, okay? Class 2 is the same system as Class 1, being that power doesn't push beyond 20, but I can access that power in a different way. I can have access to that power now via a throttle. Sometimes it's a thumb motion, sometimes it's a wrist motion, but it's a way to access the power without having to use the pedals. This is a tool. You can use a tool in a good way. You can use a tool in a bad way. We'll talk more specifically about the specific use cases for that throttle. But for now, we'll just say, as far as classifications go, if it has a throttle, it's a Class 2. If it has a throttle, it's not a Class 3. Class 3 has a top assisted speed of 28 miles per hour. There's no throttle. And how about this? First opportunity for audience interaction. You ready? Fingers on keyboards. First correct answer gets a virtual high five. Using math, what is the difference between the number 20 and the number 28? Jasmine in with the nick of time, right above Jorge and Dakota. Jasmine, here is your virtual, oh, my camera turned off. Here is your virtual high five. Ta-ta, ta-ta, congratulations. Yes. Using math, the difference between 8 and 28 is, I'm sorry, using math, the difference between 20 and 28 is 8. Using reality, the difference between 20 and 28 is more than 8. What I mean by that is if I'm standing still and I'm passed by someone going 20, that feels very different than standing still and being passed by someone going 28. For that reason, there's different rules associated with those Class 3 e-bikes. You have to be 16 in order to use them. You have to have a helmet on no matter what your age. There's certain places they're not supposed to be ridden. And it's a different tier, essentially. If you're someone who's just getting into these devices for the first time, maybe starting out with a class 1, maybe starting out with a class 2, the price difference is going to be larger with the class 3 e-bike. It's sort of a different level. And that's why there are these 3 classifications. And that's what they are, classifications. Class 1, class 2, and class 3. Okay. Pop quiz to make sure you're paying attention. Fingers on buzzers. These are pictures of 3 different things. Some of them are e-bikes. Maybe all of them are e-bikes. Maybe none of them are e-bikes. Maybe, I don't know. Let's find out. Using your skills that you've just learned, using the information I've just given you. I've tried to make it kind of hard by using pictures where you kind of get your nose close to the screen. But using the information I've just given you, what are your guesses? See, Sean says B, Hansel says B, Ada says B, Pon says B, Jorge says B, Tyler says B is not an e-bike. Thank you for full sentences. Aldrian says B, Jeremiah says B, and Jasmine says B. Nobody thinks it's anything other than B. We're all in on B as a team. We've all decided, we voted, yes. Well, let's, in fact, because you all, spoiler alert, got it right, I will say the interesting thing for me about this question, I'm less interested in the right answer, because I hope that and generally when I'm asking this question, I'm getting it. I'm more interested in asking, and feel free to put it in the chat or not. If we're in person, it's easier. I'm more interested in why, or what is it that got you to that answer? What's the first thing that you're looking for? What is something that is sort of a dead giveaway? Because I have more than once gotten pictures texted to me from principals at schools of bikes that are in the bike rack, and they say, what is this thing? And I sometimes say, that's not a bicycle. And the first thing I'm looking for, yes, Hansel and yes, Ada, is the pedals. So it's hard to see, but on A, there are a set of pedals. You can see that the pedals are just kind of hiding within the frame. On C, you can also see the pedals. I can see a chain that goes around the front chain ring and all the way to the back. I can see a chain that goes around the front chain ring all the way to the back. I can also see the hub is larger in the back on C, and the hub is larger in the back on A, that thing that's in the middle of the wheel. That's where the motor is located. That's where the motivator, that's where the thing that's pushing you is located on these. B is a motorcycle, an electric motorcycle. Suron is a name that if you say Suron at a high school, you get a bunch of people going woo, because if I told you they weren't fun, I'd be lying. If I told you they were street legal, I'd also be lying. If you want to take a motorcycle out to the desert and do backflips, then that's none of my business. But what we're talking about today is using these devices on the street with everybody else. And so if you're looking to use an e-bicycle, then what you're looking for is a bicycle with a little bit extra and not a motorcycle with a little bit less. The battery pack is located here in the middle of this bike on C. The battery pack is located here on A. And as far as I know, this thing on the top that is designed to look like a gas tank is the battery for the Suron as well. It's mid-drive, so the motor is in here doing the pulling on the chain as opposed to your feet doing the pulling on the chain. Can I tell the difference just by looking which classification it is? Is it class 1, class 2, or class 3 for A and C? Oftentimes not really. Sometimes they'll have stickers. It used to be that they could switch between classifications, but the laws on that have changed slightly in the last year. But yeah, you all figured it out. And Jorge, to your point, this is what I'm sort of talking about, is that it's hard to tell what is what. And especially on fancier, more expensive e-bikes now, I can't even tell that it's an e-bike at all. It'll look just like an acoustic bike. You get it? Electric, acoustic, right? It'll look like an acoustic bike. So just by glancing at it, it's sometimes hard to tell. But some of the giveaways are, if there's no pedals, it's not an e-bike, it's something else entirely. All right, interest of time, moving on. You guys like complicated charts and graphs? I'll just leave this on here for a second. The main thing to notice is that the class 3 e-bike does have different rules associated with it. mainly that you have to be 16 in order to use it. You have to have a helmet on no matter what your age. The minimum age here for classifications of e-bikes is not universal anymore across the entire region of Southern California. Coronado has implemented a 12-year-old age limit for e-bikes, class 1 and class 2. It's, as far as I know, the only place in San Diego that has put that limit on them. But there's an opt-in ability for cities to, if they want to have those rules, then they can do it as well. But generally speaking, no age limit for these e-bikes. In Coronado specifically, 12 is the number. Okay, I mentioned that I would talk about throttles. I'm going to do that now. I think it's an easy thing for people to point to and say, well, the ability to use an e-bike and have access to the power without using the pedals is inherently bad, and that makes them bad devices, and anybody that uses them is a bad person. That is an oversimplification, obviously. The throttle is designed to be used in a specific way, and if you use a tool in the way it's designed to be used, then that's good. And if you use a tool in the way it's not designed to be used, that's bad. The throttle is designed to get you up to the speed you want to be at. Once you're at that speed, you're off the throttle and you're using the pedals to maintain your speed. The reasons for this are numerous, one of which is if I need access to that power, it's there when I need it. If I'm always at 100% pedal to the metal, going at 100% of my power, then when I need to accelerate, I can't do it. I'm already at the top. I wouldn't drive a car around with the gas pedal pushed either all the way down or the brake pedal pushed all the way down. It's dynamic. It's there when I need it. And, you know, if I'm always going all the way, there's nowhere to go. So once I'm at the speed that I want to be at, I'm using my pedals to maintain my speed. If I feel like I'm slowing down, if I feel like a hill's coming up, whatever, then I've got that throttle to give me that little extra push. The brakes are wearing down a lot faster on bikes where people are using these things like motorcycles as opposed to like bicycles. And I understand the appeal of using an e-bike like a motorcycle. It was my brother's wife. We got her on an e-bike for the first time. She went around the block 3 times and didn't pedal once. And I get the that appeal of that. However, that's not what these things are designed to be used for. That's not how they're designed to be used. The components are not going to last as long. Battery's going to wear down faster. Brakes are going to wear down faster. I've even heard of like drivetrains locking up because people just literally never move the pedals at all and just rely on the motor in the back to move the wheel. These are bicycles with a little bit extra. They're not motorcycles with a little bit less. And if you use them in the way they're designed, everybody's happier. Okay, in the interest of time, moving on. I'm not going to talk about all 6 of these things, but go ahead and read them as I talk. If you were taking notes, and because you don't have your cameras on, in my head, you're all diligently scribbling down everything I'm saying. If you were doing that, the thing to highlight right now is this word of predictability. How many syllables does predictability have? Predictability. 6. Hexasyllabic. It's a fun word. Even if you didn't know any laws, even if you didn't know any vehicle codes, even if you didn't have a driver's license, if you were making decisions while using a bicycle, if you were making decisions while using an e-bike that made you more predictable, those would be good decisions to make. Even if you didn't know specifically what to do in any given situation, if you made a choice which made you very predictable, that would probably be a good choice. I can talk about specific laws, I can talk about specific vehicle codes, but I can also talk about what people expect you to do. And then I can also talk about the thing that actually is likely to keep you safer. Because sometimes those can be 3 different things. And my goal with this class, and with all the classes we teach, and there are numerous ones, my number one thing is I want you to, after you leave today, be better at making decisions based on knowledge as opposed to making decisions just with assumptions in your head. Does that mean you're always going to do 100% of what the law says 100% of the time always? Do people that drive cars always come to 100% full and complete stops at stop signs? Probably not. They make decisions based on a bunch of factors: time of day, visibility, familiarity with the intersection, speed of traffic around you, volume of traffic around you, all these things. So as you're reading this, my goal is to get you to know, yes, letter of the law, there's specific ways to do things. Also, what do people expect you to do, and also what keeps you the safest? If you didn't know anything else, being predictable is always a good decision. And so keeping that in mind is good. It says there specifically that Class 3 e-bikes can't use bike paths. Legally, in the last couple years, they've changed it so that specific jurisdictions can make specific rules about which e-bikes are allowed where. This is especially true when it comes to off-road riding. So we are the San Diego County Bicycle Coalition. We are not the San Diego Mountain Bike Association. That's a different group of people, and they have a lot more information than I do about riding e-bikes in an off-road setting. If it's federal land, state land, county land, city land, private land, those are all going to have different rules about which classifications of e-bikes are allowed, or if any e-bikes are allowed, frankly. So do your research if you're going to get off-road beforehand. I still, as far as Class 3 e-bikes and bike paths go, don't recommend that Class 3 e-bikes use a bike path, regardless of what the law is, because you're going to be more comfortable, as a general rule, I think this is true, you're going to be more comfortable when you're closer to other people that are moving at relatively the same speed that you're moving. So if you find yourself on a boardwalk like this, and everybody around you is going 5 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour because they're walking, and you're ripping through at 28 miles per hour, that's uncomfortable for everybody involved. But if you're on the street and car drivers are around you and they're going 15, 20 miles per hour because it's busy, and you're going 15, 20, 28 miles per hour, frankly, you're going to be more comfortable closer to traffic that's moving at relatively your same speed. So for that reason, Class 3 e-bikes are not recommended on bike paths. Bike paths are where you're going to find walkers, joggers, people with really long dog leashes, that kind of thing. Sidewalks are for walking, crosswalks are for walking. There's specific laws about where bikes are allowed to use sidewalks. And across San Diego, a general rule that's true is that it is illegal to operate a bicycle in a business district on the sidewalk, and therefore technically legal to operate a bike on the sidewalk in a residential area. This is basically so that we don't give kids tickets while they ride around the block on the sidewalk. But if you're looking to get from point A to point B, using a sidewalk is probably not the recommended way to do that. And we can go into more detail on that later on. Riding in bike lanes is required. There's a difference between a bike path and a bike lane, and a cycle track and a bike route. But if you see a bike lane, that's generally where you're supposed to be you a rider of an e-bike, acoustic bike, or otherwise. There are reasons why you'd need to leave a bike lane, like turning left or a bunch of other things. But again, without getting too far into detail, if you see a bike lane, that's probably where you're supposed to ride the bike. Okay, we're almost halfway through our time. We still got more to go. Let's see. Well, this is the only one I'll highlight here is, do you want people to see you, or do you want to be invisible? Just because I've taken other e-bike education courses, and something that I see sometimes getting repeated is this idea of operate as though no one will ever see you. Assume that you're completely invisible and there's no way for people to see you, and that's the thing that's going to keep you the safest. And I disagree with that, frankly. I think it's incorrect, because I think if you act like no one can see you, then people are less likely to see you. If you act like you're supposed to be there, if you act like you are a user of the road, then you're more likely to be treated as a user of the road. So visibility is very important. A lot of e-bikes will come with lights built in, white light in the front, red light in the back, and reflectors. Those are great. More lights is better than less. But if I'm next to the curb, and then I'm next to the parked cars, and then I'm swerving out into the road, if I'm unpredictable, that's not keeping me safer. If I'm out of someone's view, it's hard for them to see me. If I'm where people are likely to see me, then they are I would argue, more likely to see me. So I kind of push against this idea of, I don't want to be invisible. I want to be visible. I want people to be able to see me, and I want to make it easier for them to see me. Roads are for people, not just people in cars. There's your sort of highlighting catchphrase for the day. All right, I mentioned specific laws, so let me take a second to jump into a few of those. So we got, I'll go back a couple years. We got 2023, 24, and 25. There's a couple fun ones here. I mentioned the ability of local jurisdictions to decide where specific e-bike classes are supposed to go. But let's focus on this one in the middle here. The safe passing rule. I assume that you as adults are familiar with this concept of the 3-foot passing rule, which is that a car driver, when passing a bicyclist, should give a minimum of 3 feet of space when passing. This is true if the bike driver is in a bike lane. This is true if the road is narrow. This is true if the road is wide. 3 feet minimum. A couple issues with that. One is it's hard to tell what 3 feet is. It's roughly the length of a roll of wrapping paper, if that's helpful for you. It's not for me. And as a car driver, it's hard to tell what 3 feet of space is. So one of the sort of secrets is, I, as a bicyclist, if I'm using a bicycle on the road, I can always tell if the person who's passing me in their car knows how to ride a bike or not, just by how much space they give me. Because if I get very little space at all, I know this person probably doesn't even know how to ride a bike or hasn't ridden a bike in a long time. If I get a whole bunch of space, I go, oh, okay, this person's used a bike on the road before. In order to remove that ambiguity, in order to make it simpler for everybody, we've got this update to the passing rule. Most important part of the sentence is when safe. On a multi-lane road, so more than one lane moving in the same direction. This is North Park moving into City Heights, the specific photo here. We've got more than one lane moving in the same direction, right? I, as a car driver, plan on passing this bicyclist, and this bicyclist is on the right side of the road, middle of the road, left side of the road. They're in that lane somewhere. If I plan on passing that bicyclist, I should go ahead and fully change lanes in order to pass. Because the thing that I've done, the thing that you've done, the thing that you've seen done is the car driver who just gets kind of 2 wheels on one side of the lane, and they're just, given a halfway lane change, and then once they're past the bike, they're going back into their lane. This is confusing. This is ambiguous. This is not being predictable. Car drivers behind don't really know what's going on. So it's like, let's just keep it simple, right? And so if you're planning on passing a bicyclist, go ahead and fully change lanes in order to pass, and it's something that helps keep everybody safer. Okay, 2024, they've done what they call daylighting. So the red zone next to crosswalks has been increased. They're giving tickets now if you're parking right next to a crosswalk, even if it's not red, next to corners as well. This increases visibility. You, as the driver of an e-bike, are arguably your average speed is higher than that of someone who's using an acoustic bicycle. And as operators of feet, when you've used a crosswalk, you know that if I'm stepping across that crosswalk and the cars that are parked right up next to that crosswalk, it's hard for me to see traffic. It's hard for traffic to see me. So even someone who's on an e-bike, who's moving through the world, it's beneficial to have more of those no parking zones next to the crosswalk for everybody. It's easier for people who are walking to see people that are driving, and it's easier for people who are driving to see people that are walking. If you value parking spaces more than human life, then this is upsetting to you. However, if you think that human life is something that we should strive to continue for all people, then taking away a couple parking spaces isn't going to be the end of the world. More exciting is this one over here. You have already seen, and I guarantee you've seen, at some of the busier intersections across San Diego already for the last, 3, 4, and more years, they've started making it so that the pedestrian sign goes before the light turns green. So the light is red, and it used to be as soon as the light turned green, the walking person would happen. But now, at busier intersections, the light will stay red, and beep, boop, little walking person comes out. They are only doing it at certain intersections. It may be rolling out to more. I was just in Washington, D.C. recently, and they've got this at every single intersection across all of downtown. Every single signalized intersection, it's going to stay red, and it's going to get a little head start for the pedestrians, 3, 4 seconds, whatever. The cool thing is bikes go on the pedestrian signal. At some intersections where there's a separated cycling facility, a cycle track, you may see bike-specific lights, so like a little red bike and then a little green bike. But even without that, you're at an intersection, you're in the lane, cars are next to you, you're waiting to go, the light is red, but beep, boop, beep, boop, people start walking and you start riding. It decreases the likelihood of two of the most common types of bike crashes, which are the right hook and the left cross. It's legal for cars to drive across crosswalks even when the walk sign is on. This is something that's confusing to say out loud for people, but it's true. Even though the walk sign is on, if I need to turn across that crosswalk, I'm allowed to do it. I'm not supposed to do it when there's people walking in it. I don't know if anyone really pays a lot of attention to that. So the idea is, instead of letting the cars start moving at the same time the pedestrians start moving, we give them, pedestrians, a little bit of a head start. Now, after they're already halfway across the intersection, the light turns green for the cars. They're better able to see what's going on. You, as an e-bike rider, get a little bit of a head start. You're already out there in the lane before the light turns green. It's easier for you to be visible. It's easier for people to see you and understand what's going on. This is confusing for folks. It's going to take a while to get used to it, as it does with all kinds of different things. But that's where we're at now. New laws for 2025. Maybe we'll let Thomas talk about this a little bit more at the end, but just as a preview, there used to be easier to switch between classifications. So I'd buy one e-bike for the family, and in the morning I put it in class 1 mode for the kid, and then I take it on the weekends and I bump it up into class 3 or even off-road mode, and just, you know, carving up the sand dunes or whatever. The new system is, if it's got a throttle, it's a class 2. If it doesn't have a throttle, it's not a class 2. It used to be that you could sort of have a thing where, oh, well, the throttle works until I get to 20, and then the pedals push until I get to 28. So it's like sometimes a class 2, it's sometimes a class 3. It got confusing for everybody. No one really understood. So we've tried to simplify the different classifications of e-bikes and make it a little bit easier to understand what it is that you're using. You ready for me to make it more complicated? Yay, more complicated. A lot of these e-bikes now will have a walking mode. So even if it is a bike that doesn't have a throttle, it'll have a little button that'll make it push it into walking mode. So it'll just give you a motor push of 2.5 miles an hour or something. And that's because these things are heavy. And so you can sometimes get a little bit of a push with them. So if it has a throttle, it's a class 2, except for in complicated situations that guarantee that I'm going to be talking about this for forever. Okay, you ready for a pop quiz again? On the screen, you have a couple different things that you may see on the road. The thing with 8 signs is called a stop sign. It means cease forward motion at the line. The thing in the middle is a traffic signal, commonly red, yellow, and green. The thing over here with the bicycle and the 2 chevrons on top is a specific symbol, which you have seen painted on the road before. If you know for sure what it means, go ahead and put it in the chat. If you 100% do not know what it means, I'm more interested in your answer. What do you assume it means? When you see this symbol on the road, what do you assume it's trying to communicate to you? Because the people that designed these things, I think, try and make something that is easily accessible and is communicating things so that even if I don't take a class, I still know what it means. I'm not sure if they were successful when it came to this specific symbol. So if you know what it's called, if you know what it means, tell me. If you don't know what it's called and you don't know what it means, I definitely want you to tell me. What is your assumption? What do you think it's trying to tell you? I'd like, again, wrong answers are encouraged. Give me like the weird answers. Just like, you know, I have no idea, but what if it was this? What do you got? Jasmine says sharrows, aka share the road. Interesting. Jeremiah says bikes can use the entire lane. Interesting. Thomas says power boost. Yes. So if you've ever played Mario Kart, you've seen the little rainbow V's, and when you ride over them, it gives you a massive speed boost. I think it'd be cool if we had that technology for e-bikes and we could build in sort of a power boost in the road. I'm not sure who to call about that, but if anyone has any leads, let me know, because that'd be pretty fun. Jorge says, I think it's trying to say bikes can only go this way, this direction. Great answer. I like that. Gerald says bike direction as well. Everyone's laughing at the wonderful power boost joke. I love it. Kristen says, I don't know for sure, but my assumption is direction. And again, direction of traffic. So here's the clue as to why it isn't direction. This specific symbol is not an arrow. It is in fact a chevron. So you've learned some new vocabulary today. An arrow is 3 lines. So it's got the V, the 1 line, the 2 line, and then a 3rd line that comes out of the bottom. So the symbol for bike lane does have an arrow. It's an arrow, so it's pointing in a specific direction with the line coming out the bottom. It's got a picture of a bike, and then it says the word specifically bike lane. These are chevrons, and as such are not necessarily indicators of direction of travel. Two of the more common answers I get when I ask this question are people who say it means bikes are allowed here, or they say it means look out for bicycles. Like, hey, as a car driver, here's the symbol just reminding you to be aware of bicycles. And the problem with both of those answers is both of those answers are true. However, both of those answers are true even if the symbol isn't painted on the road. You're always supposed to be looking out for bikes regardless of what symbol is there. So the symbol isn't there for that specific reason. The symbol also isn't there to say bikes are allowed to use this road, because bike drivers are allowed to use all the same roads that car drivers are allowed to use, except for, I think, obviously, freeways. The next time you get onto a freeway on-ramp, look for the sign that specifically says bikes aren't allowed to use this facility. It's there. I'm asking you, I'm saying for real. Next time you get onto a freeway on-ramp, look for that specific sign. It says it at every freeway on-ramp. And they have to put that there because by default, roads are for people, not just people in cars. If there's a bike lane, bikes should be in that bike lane. But without that, bikes are allowed to use the road. So if it doesn't mean look out for bikes and it doesn't mean bikes are allowed to use this road, let's go back to Jasmine and Jeremiah's answers. Sharrows, which is the correct answer for this symbol, and share the road, and bikes can use the entire lane. So that we used to have signs that said share the road, specifically, a picture of a bicycle and the words share the road. The problem with that is it's a little bit ambiguous, and you'd get people in cars who were driving past and cutting you off and saying, hey, get out of the way, share the road with me, buddy. And it's like, well, that's not really what share the road means. So instead, we've moved away from that. And instead, you may see signs that do say essentially what Jeremiah said, which is bikes may use full lane. Sharrow is here's another fun vocabulary word. You ready? A portmanteau, a combination of 2 words. And the 2 words that it's combining are the word share and the word arrow, which is confusing for me because I already said this isn't an arrow, and it specifically means there isn't enough room to share. This symbol is only painted on specific lanes. And the thing that's different about the lanes in which this symbol is painted is those lanes in which this symbol is painted are too narrow to share side by side with a car. There isn't enough space for, let's say, a parked car, the open door of that parked car, space for the bicycle, another 3 feet of space, and then another 8, 10, 12 feet for the car. So if there isn't enough room for a car and a bike to be side by side safely, the symbol gets painted. Now, all it's saying is the lane is too narrow to share. Because I now know the lane is too narrow to share, I as a bike rider, I as an e-bike driver, I as a car driver have some decisions to make. As a car driver, I should definitely fully change lanes in order to pass. There is not enough room. Even in a situation where there's only a single lane in either direction, if it's too narrow to pass that bicyclist safely, I need to wait to pass that bicyclist. Am I saying that cars have to slow down sometimes because someone is slow in front of them? Yes. Do I like slowing down? No. But it's a function of living in the world, right? We're all just trying to get through life. You as an e-bike driver, you as a bike driver, have some decisions to make about where to put yourself within a specific lane. As a car driver, I'm either in this lane or I'm in that lane. As a bike driver, not only am I in either this lane or that lane, there's also space within that lane. So am I on the right side of the road? Am I in the middle of the road? Am I on the left side of the road? This Sharrow symbol says, as a bike driver, you're encouraged to ride closer to the middle of that lane to discourage that unsafe passing. If people feel like they can barely kind of sort of squeeze by you, they're going to try and barely kind of sort of squeeze by you. So as an e-bike driver especially, this is the situation where if I'm not already at the speed that I want to be at, here's the time to get yourself a little bit extra speed. Here's the time to hit that throttle. You are encouraged to hold your lane, control your lane, make yourself visible, people tend not to hit things that they see. They do tend to accidentally hit things that they don't see. So putting yourself in the middle of that road makes it so that there isn't the situation of there's 6 inches between the side of your side view mirror and the back of my head. I don't like that, and you don't like that. That's not going to be good for anybody. When it's safe, when there's space, absolutely, I'm going to move off to the side and continue and allow traffic to pass in the same way I would if I was driving a car up a mountain and I had 6 or 7 cars behind me. But I'm not going to do that when it's unsafe. And as a bike driver, this is intimidating. This is confusing. As a car driver, this is frustrating. I totally get it. And if you as a car driver are frustrated by the fact that I need to be in the middle of this lane because it's too narrow, great. Come with me. Let's go yell at the mayor together and tell him we want a separated facility over there. Let's tell him we want a bike lane over there. That's a way to make everybody happy, right? But it's important to know what the symbol means because it exists. We can debate whether it's a good thing or a bad thing all day long, but I think it's important to just communicate what it is and how it applies to bike drivers and e-bike drivers. Oh my gosh, almost out of time. Okay, let's jump to my last couple slides here. If we're in person, then right now I say raise your hand if you or someone you know has ever had a bike stolen before, and then all the hands go up because that's how the world works. There's nothing that will 100% prevent bike theft other than, I guess, never taking your hand off of your bicycle ever. Bring it into the grocery store with you if you want. The solutions, or I guess the ways to make it less likely that your bike gets stolen are using a U-style lock, combining that with a chain-style lock, and making your bike less desirable than another one. A lot of e-bikes will have removable batteries. Take advantage of that. Who's going to steal an e-bike with no battery on it? Maybe somebody, but it's less likely to get stolen than another one. So now your bike's locked up and your battery's with you up at the desk in the office. Maybe you take the battery out and put that in the grocery cart with you. Now your bike's locked out front of the grocery store, but it's got no battery. Who's going to steal a bike with no battery? I know people that'll take the seat off because who's going to steal a bike with no seat? Take the seat in with you. The front wheel comes off sometimes. There's a bunch of different ways to make your bike less desirable than another one. So that's pre-prevention. Post-recovery, it used to be you could get a bike license for your bike if you took it to the fire station. Now we've had different services pop up that sort of seek to fill that role. Bike Index and 529 Garage are 2 of the bigger ones. I recommend checking those out. Your homework for tonight, even if you don't do that, if you own a bicycle or e-bike, any kind, I want you to know the serial number of your bicycle. It's important, and I'm not exaggerating. I know people that have had bikes stolen and then gotten the bike returned to them because they had the serial number. The bike was found later on. They were able to match the serial number. They got a phone call and the bike was returned. It had been spray painted and looked different, but it was their bike. Your serial number is probably underneath the bicycle, underneath where the pedals are. There's a couple different spaces. It's different than a barcode. It's different than numbers. So take a picture of the numbers on your bicycle. If it's carved into this bicycle, if it's a sticker on the bicycle, take a picture of it. And by extension, make sure a picture of your bicycle exists, because I get so sad when I see people on social media post about like, hey, my bike was stolen. If anyone sees it, let me know. It's red and it has 2 wheels. And it's like, okay, well, that's not going to help anybody, right? So a picture of you standing next to your bicycle is a nice thing to have. If the worst happens, you can tell people what it looks like at least. So figure out your serial number, make sure you know what that is. Bike Index and 529 Garage are great. 529 Garage I know is more active in the North County areas. Bike Index I'm pretty sure is all over the place. I'm fairly certain it is national. I've seen it used all over the place, and Thomas is going to tell us fun stories about that in just a second. Okay, we're almost done. This is a rhetorical question, so just think your answer to yourself. Is there enough room for someone to sit on the roof of my car while I drive my car? Yes. Should someone sit on the roof of my car while I drive my car? Maybe. If the car is designed to carry a second person, if there's a roll cage and a windshield and a special seat belt and like whatever else, and it's a car that's designed to be double-decker, then I guess maybe. Bikes function in the same way. Some bikes are specifically designed to carry a second person. Some bikes look like maybe you could squeeze a second person on there, but that doesn't mean you necessarily should. Is there a platform for the feet? Is there a place for them to sit? Is there a dedicated seat for them? These are all indicators that, yeah, that's probably a bike that's okay to carry 2 people. Even a bike that it's okay to carry 2 people, if you're a young person, you're going to school, your school probably has a rule about, hey, no 2 people on a bike, regardless of whether it's designed for it or not. They're going to operate very differently. They're going to turn very differently. They're going to stop very differently, start very differently. Practice before you do it. Because it's a skill. It's absolutely a cool thing about e-bikes is you can carry more weight. You can get a week's worth of groceries in the basket. You can drop the kids off at school and do it all on a bike and not get too sweaty when you're doing it, which is awesome. But you want to practice before you get out there on the road. Last 2 slides. You know what? We already talked about this, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. White light in the front, red light in the back. That's the bare minimum. Highly recommend adding more. Make it look like Pac-Man's trying to chase you. You can put lasers that shine down on the ground. There's all kinds of fun stuff. So trick your bike out. As long as you're not shining strobe lights in people's eyes, go for it. And then finally, helmets. If you're under the age of 18, you're required by law to wear a helmet when operating a bicycle. If you're riding a class 3 e-bike, you're required by law to wear a helmet no matter what your age. There's good reasons to do it. And frankly, the thing that got me to wear a helmet as a teenager and even into my 20s wasn't getting yelled at a lot about it. It wasn't being threatened with tickets. It wasn't people showing me videos of heads getting run over. It was just finding a helmet that I actually liked the look of and wanted to wear. They got helmets with all kinds of technology in them now. Bluetooth speakers, microphones. I can, make a phone call from my helmet. They've got turn signals. They've got all kinds of fun stuff. And different styles. So you don't have to look like a French bike racer. You can have a Minions helmet or a Hello Kitty helmet or whatever. Any helmet is better than no helmet. There are differences when it comes to quality of helmets, and this is not a time to skimp out. But again, any helmet is better than no helmet. Wearing a helmet is great. Wearing a helmet the right way is better. Real quick, anybody notice what's wrong with the way this helmet is being worn? Because there's a problem. Any guesses? Give it 7 seconds, then I'm moving on. Ada says backwards. Jeremiah says big. Thomas says way too loose. It is not backwards. It is arguably a little bit too big. And even though the straps are strapped underneath the chin, this helmet is adjusted in such a way that it can be worn way too far back on the head. So much of that forehead is showing. The helmet's designed to protect your whole head so that if you fall forward, the first thing that hits the ground is the helmet and not your face. If it's all the way on the back of your head, if you fall forward, the first thing that hits the ground is going to be your face. I'm looking for about 2 fingers worth of space above the eyebrows. If it's way farther back than that, and I see people wearing helmets like this all the time, move it so it's level, and then adjust those straps. We're looking for about 2 fingers worth of space underneath the chin, and that connection, those places where the 2 helmet straps become 1 helmet strap, should be just underneath the ear. That, combined with tightening down whatever sort of locking mechanism is in the back of the helmet, not all helmets have it, but it's nice and it's more common than you'd think now. If you can hit those basic things, the helmet's probably going to be worn in the right way, and if it's worn in the right way, it's probably going to protect you. So with that, I'm going to stop talking because I've been doing it a lot. Thomas, Mr. Bosch, talk to me a little bit about Bike Index because I'm interested to hear about your specific experience with that. And then, yeah, give me a rundown of like some of the more common questions you get.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Bike Index. We register every bike we sell on Bike Index for our customers. We just pull the serial number right off the box of the bike and then, tie it to their name on there. Over the 4 years that we've had our shop down here in Imperial Beach, it's dozens of times we've received calls from the police with a bike that they found. And then, we'll have a serial number and then we'll just match it to the original owner, and that usually helps. But yeah, it's an incredibly useful tool, and short of having like some sort of like tracking chip on your bike, it's probably the best thing you can do to actually get your bike back.
Very cool. That's impressive. The downside I've heard of the tracking chip is like, okay, I can see my bike. It's in some guy's backyard. Now what? Do I go ask him for the bike back? Like probably not recommended. So yeah, preventing the bike from getting stolen in the first place. And then, yeah, Bike Index. So it works. When I said, what are the most common questions? Is there a couple of things that like come to mind as far as like concerns that like most people have when they come in to buy an e-bike?
Yeah, I think if it's like a parent buying a bike for their kid, which seems to be, quite a large portion of our customer base, it's usually the safety stuff and usually a lot of the things you covered around what are the classes, where can they ride them, where can't they ride them, etc. And like what are the important things to have on you. And you kind of covered that as well. Just a good fitting helmet and a lock are always the things that we suggest somebody has. Luckily, more often than not, most e-bikes have front and rear lights installed on them, which is super helpful. And technology is getting better and better. Like we sell a bike now that has like radar detection on it that will flash your tail light at somebody if they're coming up on you too quickly. But we're seeing more stuff like that, which is incredibly helpful. But I think how to stay safe is always the biggest question. I think a lot of it's typically around the classes and then range, torque for how we questions that basically will affect how somebody uses an e-bike in their daily life. But ultimately, I think most people on average ride their bike less than 20 miles at a time, which pretty much any bike can cover that distance. And I mean, for the most part, most e-bikes can carry a good amount of weight, so you can really use them as a car replacement for a lot more trips than you'd expect.
Would you recommend buying an e-bike without riding an e-bike?
No.
You guys offer test rides, right?
Oh, absolutely. And we're down on the on the Bayshore Bikeway here, so we have a really great spot for test riding. But it's a motorized vehicle, so that can be intimidating for a lot of people. And ultimately, the same stuff applies to like that would for a normal bike. Like, fit is pretty important with how comfortable you feel on a bike. So I'd recommend you should always go out and test one to make sure that it's something that you could live with on a daily basis.
Love it. Yeah, I think that's the big thing that is surprising to folks is just how much difference there is, not only between the classifications of e-bikes, but even within, say, class 2, there's going to be a bunch of differences as far as like the fit, how does it feel, and then how does that acceleration happen? Is it from the speed of the pedals? Is it from the torque of the pedals? Is the motor in the frame? Is the motor in the wheels? They're all going to feel different. So yeah, don't just go online, pick one you think that looks cool and get it shipped to your house. The benefit of having folks like Rad Power and other bike shops in the area is go in, say hi, even leave your wallet in the car so you're not tempted, and just check out what the options are. And then when something goes wrong with the bike, you've got a place to bring it back to. Brad Power's got a great service program over there.
Yeah, and honestly, that's an important thing. Thanks for that. It's also I think an important thing to highlight when looking at buying an e-bike is make sure it's one that you can get serviced somewhere, because a lot of bike shops that don't specialize in e-bikes won't necessarily work on them. A lot of just direct-to-consumer bikes that are sold via Amazon or just from some no-name company may not carry a specific UL or any kind of certification around their battery. And so that we don't know if those batteries are safe, like if it might just spontaneously combust one day. So because of that, a lot of bike shops won't take them in, and you might not be able to get service on your bike, or let alone find spare parts for it. So when shopping for an e-bike, I'd always recommend that you buy one that has a significantly built out like service network. So whether it's their own brands shops like ours or service partners that can help you with that, because if you are using an e-bike as a form of transportation, it's going to need some work at some point. And it's great if you can do it yourself. You should be as self-sufficient as possible. I think that's the best thing for you. But should you need a part that you just broke or whatever, you should be able to get one. And then not to ignore Jack's comment here, it's kind of mentioning that e-bikes might be great for personal transportation, but are is it as healthy as a normal bike? Obviously, I think actually one of my favorite memes I've ever seen was it was like the e-bikers training in the off season. It was just a guy on an escalator because but yeah, so like obviously I think e-bikes, there was a study that came out a while ago that showed that people that own e-bikes are more likely to ride their bikes like more often.
Yeah.
And so in that regard, total improvement for your health could be higher on an e-bike depending on kind of your typical use case.
Absolutely.
Obviously, like if you're using only your cardiovascular system as your source of power, then you're going to burn more calories on a regular bike. But over the long distance of owning a bike for your lifetime, if it's one that you get on every day without question because it makes your life easier, you're probably going to end up doing more good that way. So really,
even if I'm only working half as hard, if I'm bringing it out twice as often, then I've equaled out. Yeah, get it because it's fun. That's the first reason, right? And then there's a bunch of benefits after that.
No, exactly.
The part of the reason we have RadPower here specifically is because they're a partner in these services that SANDAG provides, one of them being the bike maintenance quick check. So if you want additional education, you want more stuff for your specific workplace, one of the cool things is we can come out and do a class like we just took, which is the bike basics. We've also got bike commuting 101, bike commuting 202, bike friendly driver, and this bike maintenance quick check. So you bring your bike to work, you're met on site by trained mechanics who give the bike sort of a once-over. This isn't the opportunity to pull the rusty bike that's fallen apart out of the back of your garage. It's the time to use the bike or bring in the bike that you're already using, but want to make sure is in good working order. So they'll go over the bike and give it sort of the once-over. And then if there's anything more major, you may be referred back to the shop. But Thomas and Brad Power are nice enough to help out with those. So thanks for that. And in addition, the other cool thing that's happening at RadPower is we've got these SANDAG specific discounts. So there's a couple different bike shops that are partnered, RadPower being one of them. We've also got CycleQuest, Peninsula Bike, Stay True, CycleWorks, and Trek South Bay. And then as far as mobile repair stations, these are cool. That's a guy in a van that'll come to your house and fix your bike if you need it. Wrench House is great. They're friends of ours. And then there's also Velofix East. They operate sort of east of SDSU. So check these out. You mentioned you want the SANDAG local bike shop sponsor discount, $5 discount on a purchase of $25 or more for goods and or services. So, nothing to sneeze at. $5 is $5. That gets you, what, half a burrito these days? Okay, and with that, we'll open it up to questions. We got more information at the SANDAG website, more information at our website, sdbikecoalition.org. And we're all over social media, as is RadPower. Our YouTube page, San Diego County Bicycle Coalition's YouTube page, has a lot more classes. Some of them are 5 minutes long, some of them are an hour long and beyond. So if you wanted more information, that would be the place to find it. You'll get an email after the class ends with a survey link, but if you wanted to take that now, feel free to point your camera at the screen and take a 5-question survey now. And in the email, we'll also have a recording of the class and some other stuff. Melina has also put a link to the survey in the chat, so you can also click it that way and take the survey on your computer. Even if you don't have a question, because we have 2 minutes left, if you would humor me, and if you don't have a question, tell me what you think a question is that someone else might have, and then just ask that. Because you've got a wealth of knowledge here. Thomas has answers to questions. Frankly, I would argue between the two of us, we will answer with 100% accuracy any question that you have about bikes. That's my challenge. We know everything, literally everything. Maybe not. I don't know. Stump the experts. What do you got? Literally any question about bikes? No question too big or too small. I didn't talk about a lot of different stuff. There's more to cover in these classes. So just give me one question and then we'll end the class. I promise. Just give me one so I can say we answered questions. Don't make me start naming names because I'll do it. Melina says, what's your favorite place to ride in San Diego? Thank you, Melina. It depends. The place that I bring people from out of town who want to see what it's like and want an easy, fun place to ride bikes in San Diego. I promise I'm not saying this just because RadPower is here, but the Bayshore Bikeway is fantastic. Jump on the ferry from downtown San Diego, take that across to Coronado, and then you're a hop, skip, and a jump away from a fully separated cycling facility with some of the best views of ocean water, I would argue, in all of Southern California. It's pretty special. And it gets you places too. It's continuing to be improved. They're continuing to make updates to it, especially on the northeast side as you approach downtown San Diego. It's cool coming down. It's cool coming back. And I'll use this as a plug for the Bike the Bay ride. It's one of the few times, one of the only times you're allowed to, legally able to, ride your bike across the Coronado Bridge. If you look up Bike the Bay, you can find more information about it. It's a ride that we, the Bike Coalition, puts on. Super fun, super low stress, super easy. There's only one hill, and it's the hill that gets you up onto the bridge. But then you're riding your bike across the Coronado Bridge and getting views that you literally can't get anywhere else. It's pretty awesome. And then from there, it's a real flat, easy ride down to Imperial Beach and back with you and thousands of your new closest friends. So recommend checking that out. And I'll leave it there.